The Hurling Pod.
On Off the Ball.
With Applegreen. Making every journey better.
Hello and welcome to the Hurling Pod with myself, Paul Murphy and James Skehill. As you might notice, our fearless leader, Will O'Callaghan, is not with us this evening. He's feeling a small bit under the weather, but he'll be back with us next week. How are you, James? Happy birthday, might I say?
Thanks, Murph. I'm 38 years young today.
38.
I genuinely feel about 50 when you've got the fourth kid. They just test you to your boundaries, your limits.
Fair enough.
So I've had all weekend with them, so I'm feeling it, Murph.
Well, more importantly, at 38, how's the body feeling? That's the bigger question.
The body's good. Actually, I'm surprisingly good, yeah.
That's good.
I've turned my training all into the mornings now. I just feel it's way better.
Okay, and how does the mornings make it better than evenings?
Just because you get through your day of work and children. You try to do your gym in the evening, your training in the evening. You just don't have the energy. You don't have even the
enthusiasm.
The will to even go at it. It just seems like such a process. But it's actually easier to get up at 5:15 and go to the gym for 6 and be done by 7:15 the day ahead of the after that. Now, the only challenge I have is that I'm struggling to stay awake past 9 o'clock in the evening.
That's all right, though. That's all right. That comes with age. But look, thankfully, we have a lot to talk about this weekend. First of all, I suppose to mention that the Hurling Pod is sponsored by Applegreen, helping you relax, recharge, and enjoy the journey ahead. Huge amount to talk about this weekend. I suppose the first place to start, Limerick stretched their unbeaten record against Tipperary to 13 games. With a 15-point win at Semple Stadium. In other matches, Kilkenny struck late to edge out Waterford and Park. A cracker in Croke Park, 13-man Dublin fought back to rescue a draw against Wexford. And Clare saw off what would be seen, I suppose, as a stubborn challenge from Kildare in Newbridge. And Antrim overturned Carlow to boost their chances to stay in the second flight. Now, we'll obviously get to the matches in a bit, but I suppose describing it as a stubborn performance, Kildare were ahead by 4 points against Clare for quite a bit of that match. Now, they got a goal late on, which probably brought the score back to a little bit closer, or kind of, I suppose, put a polish on the scoreboard. And Antrim really gave Carlow a fair hammering in Corrigan Park as well. But look, I think the first place to start is Saturday night. Tipperary, 21 points. Limerick, 36 points. A huge score out of Limerick. Aidan O'Connor, absolutely hugely impressive. 11 points, 3 frees, 2 65s. 6 points from play, outstanding. Another man, Shane O'Brien, 6 points from play as well, and Peter Casey with 4. Down the far side, for Tipperary, Darren McCarthy with 7 frees. Noel McGrath, 6 points. He was, a huge influence on the game, really stood up. And then a few other scorers on the board as well. For me, I think Sean Keneally was actually really impressive. But I'd say impressive when things weren't going well for Tipperary. I thought he was one of the forwards that was really, really standing up. But look, we spoke last week that I said that I thought Tipperary were coming into this game in a bit of a stronger position. We also mentioned that we thought Limerick were going to go up through the gears over the coming weeks, which was fair to say. For me, this was a performance out of Limerick that was maybe 2 or 3 games ahead of where I thought they were going to go. I thought in the middle third, they were unbelievably dominant. Even at the start of the match, like this game, I fail to say at any stage this game was actually a competition, which was very surprising. The performance from Tipperary, I think, is really what's going to grate on Liam Cahill and the management and the players the most, because, look, we'll talk about the other games later, but other teams maybe got a draw when they would have been hoping for a win or maybe happy with a draw, but the performance was the main thing that, Kilkenny and Waterford, Waterford unlucky not to get something out of the game, but they had a great performance. Same with Kilkenny. Dublin and Wexford, very similar. The performances were there. Kildare again. But for this one, for me, it was just a performance of Tipperary that, 33 minutes we mentioned last night before they got a score from play. And again, Noel McGrath steps up and gets the score for them. But I just think there's so many parts here that I think Liam Cahill and Tipperary will maybe look to sift through. But, he mentioned it after the game, the spirit, the fight that just wasn't there. Like Willie Connor sent off just after halftime. I don't think it really made a difference. Like, he'll be disappointed with the straight red. He'll get a few games of a suspension now as well. But really, there's very little that Tipperary can take from this game. I don't know, from your side, from watching on there, I mean, there's a lot of points to mention there. Take it from the start. Where did you see this either going wrong, or what do you take from it?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing to say was, when I was looking at the games kind of from a preview perspective, let's say Friday and Thursday, this game I thought would be one of the closest. I thought, let's say, Tipperary would have, they would have some, indirectly, obviously, developed a bit of a swagger on last year's performances in the championship, obviously. And if they carry that through to Limerick and try to get that monkey off the back with the Limerick defeats, it was up to Saturday evening, it was 12 in a row. And what surprised me most over the whole course of the weekend was the manner in which Tipperary got beaten.
Yeah.
It was the case of two extremes, Murph, for me. It was how sharp Limerick were, particularly in their shooting efficiency in such weather conditions. That surprised me. I could not believe how good they were from 60 plus yards out in the wings, let's say, from the opposition 65-yard line, shooting like from crazy ranges and having such a high degree of accuracy in such a bad weather conditions. In February, wind, rain, it was awesome. Like and for me to watch that, I'm thinking, geez, this is like. And I know it's around the league, and I get that, right? But it just felt like the Limerick of old. And in the same breath, when I say Limerick of old, I didn't see Barry Nash. I didn't see, Jimmy Burns for most of the game. No Declan Hannon, obviously, from retiree. I didn't see, Keane Lynch. I didn't see Tom Morrissey for most of the game. And still, they didn't miss a beat. And it got me, what was so surprising about it all was that you look at the names that would be classed as young people on that team now. Adam English, O'Connor, and the Bull O'Brien.
Yeah.
Those three guys were absolutely awesome. I think that I had the figure there yesterday in terms of contribution from play. Like O'Brien got 6, Aidan O'Connor got 6 as well from play. Excuse me, and English got, I think it was 2. So those three young guys who you could say, apart from English last year, didn't have a full position nailed down. 14 points from play against the Ireland champions. That's extremely impressive.
Yeah.
So that was one extreme, more from that how Limerick were so efficient, so good. And then another extreme was how poor Tipperary were. Particularly, in wintry conditions, it's very hard to play a fluid game. Everyone knows that. It's very hard. So it comes down to then, can you win your own ball? Can you win primary possession, you versus your man? And Tipperary just couldn't do it. They just weren't able to win primary ball. They just could. There was, from a long ball perspective, they hadn't got it wasn't even technical enough. Just the strength, the man-to-man, the intent just wasn't there. Like, and then when you go look at McGrath, I don't know what age he is now at this stage.
35.
But like at least 35, because if he's not 36 or even more, because look at the 6 points he scored, and it was just, I thought he was cute and clever, getting himself into positions, open himself up into the play, to get these 20-yard passes. That's all I was taking for Limerick as well. It was a 15, 20-yard pass. Then you'd see Aidan O'Connor on the end of the ball, Peter Casey on the end of the ball, shooting opportunity, and it was just pure intent in terms of Limerick to get into a position, to get an out ball or get a pass from the defenceman to provide a scoring opportunity. Whereas Tipperary just felt so laboured. And a good one, I feel like I was watching the first half, because first half was really when it was a bit of a contest. And I say contest in inverted commas, my friend, right? But in terms of exiting the half, right? So Tipperary, they were taking an average of 5 passes to exit their half. Limerick was 2. That's how slick Limerick were. So Limerick were just slick. So, for example, that could be Nicky Quaid to Will O'Donoghue, and Nicky Will O'Donoghue to Adam English, out. Whereas when you watch Tipperary, it was Barry Hogan to Brian O'Mara back to Seamus Kennedy back in. It was just very, kind of reactive, whereas Limerick had all the pro action, I thought, yesterday evening.
Yeah.
And you'll have these games. These games are coming every now and then. I suppose I think Liam Cahill will be thankful that it's this time of year that, that he's effectively got 2 months till the Munster Championship comes. But the manner in which they were defeated has to be a bit of a worry. Yeah. You cannot just brush it off and say, look, it's only the end of February, we'll be all right. Like, in the manner in which they got beaten 13 times in a row, it's just a statistic. But in real time, the manner in which Limerick beat them, that has to be a concern.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's the manner of it. And again, I completely agree with you. Like, this is not doom and gloom for Tipperary. Like, if you string together a few of these performances, you start to kind of go, what's happening here? But like, one of the things that jumped into my head is the fact that, like, Tipperary won't be able to stop the talk about, doing a 2 in a row and all these sort of things, or doing the double. Like, they won't be able to stop that. That talk will just go on, and whether they're doing good or whether they're doing poor, this talk will be there. But, I'd be thinking that Liam Cahill is trying to keep that talk out of the dressing room. I don't think that talk had anything to do with this performance, obviously. But the nature of it, again, I'd agree with you. I think they're happy enough that this would happen. If it's happened at any stage, happen earlier in the year, so that now when you return to training on Tuesday night, the management, everyone can turn around, and even the players themselves can turn around and say, lads, that's not what we're about. This is absolutely, terrible. But the other thing is that, like, I looked at other teams. It's not to polish it or put too much of a positive perspective on it, but you'll see most teams go week to week, and it mightn't be as obvious as this performance because Limerick were so good. It really highlighted that Tipperary weren't at the pitch of the game. But if you look at Waterford in the first game against Cork, Waterford were very poor. They self-admittedly were very disappointed with their performance. But then the following week, turn it around and perform really well against Limerick and get the result. And I think there's a lot of teams who are looking at it that way in terms of that one bad performance. And it mightn't be that drastically bad, but it's enough to grate with you. It's enough to kind of, I suppose, hang with you when you come back into training on Tuesday night. And like those things do serve you really well. Like if you're hitting balls wide, and those are all things you can work on. If the touch is a little bit off, they're all technical things in the game you can work on. But for me, I think it's what Liam Cahill, and to take Liam Cahill's word on it, it's the spirit and the fight of it. Like, even if things aren't working out for you on the field, you still want lads to be fighting and to be looking for the ball, and that just wasn't there. And I actually think, the 6 points that Noel McGrath got, I kind of think it was because tactically things weren't working out for them. They weren't making the runs, or maybe you could even say that Limerick were stopping them from doing it, but it resulted in literally probably hurling your patch of the field. And I think that's why Noel McGrath was taking shots, whereas before, we look at Noel McGrath as a playmaker. He would have, I think, a few of those balls where he had a chance to take a shot at other times when Tipperary were moving really well, would have looked to make a probing pass or to open up maybe a goal opportunity. But those opportunities just weren't there. Whereas if you look at Limerick, particularly in the first half, Limerick had a few opportunities in the first half where they had the ball around the 65, got the head up and floated one or two in. I remember, I think it was Darragh Donovan tried to pop one in through Cahill O'Neill. I think it was running through. Ball just got away from him. But they had opportunities. Another one where I think Gillan gave out to Peter Casey because he was true on goal and he didn't give it to him. Whereas Limerick were actually creating those chances. They'll go to train on Tuesday night and they'll say, as we were creating the chances, we just need to get the head up. Whereas I think Limerick with this, or Tipperary with this match, were one step even away from that, where they weren't even creating the chances. So for me, that's the thing. And like, again, to mention Sean Keneally again, he came away from the match with a point, and it was the second point from play for Tipperary in the first half, which I think was around the 35th minute. But I thought he was actually, doing a bit of fighting and stuff. Out of all the forwards, I know Noel McGrath came away at 6 points, but in the first half, I thought he was the one endeavouring the most to maybe get on the ball, to be fighting and so on. And like, I think last week we spoke about players taking these matches seriously enough that, like, you could get a jersey. He's one of them lads who's fighting for that position, or fighting for his own position on the team. So I think, in fairness to him, he deserves credit as well. But like another fella there that we didn't mention, or two of the lads, I suppose you alluded to earlier, like Aidan O'Connor with 11 points, 6 points from play, and Shane O'Brien, like Shane O'Brien's points and Aidan O'Connor's points, both got 6 from play, but they were completely different. And like last week we mentioned the big fella, or maybe 2 weeks ago, the big fella on the edge of the box coming back into vogue. Like Shane O'Brien, really, they can just fling a ball into him there, not pretty, and he just wins it, and never mind winning it. Like, I think a few Tipperary lads, I think kind of swapped around on him at different stages. He's so big and he's so strong. He just creates a yard of space and pops it over the bar. Like 6 points from play from your full forward is absolutely outstanding. And like, you can't expect him to do that every single match. But the fact that he's so physical, he's well capable of doing it. Like, if he's able to outmuscle one of the Tipperary backs, there's no real other fella in the country either that's going to outmuscle Shane O'Brien. So I don't know. I just think that kind of threat in at the edge of the box I think that's serious.
As well as that, how I see most teams nowadays, they have a two-man full forward line. And usually the 2 men inside the full forward line are predominantly pacey players as opposed to big, strong players. Yeah. So now when you have a guy inside the square like Shane O'Brien, who's, don't know his exact height, I'm going to throw a guess, Murph, he's about 6'2". He's definitely every bit of 14 stone.
There you go again, is he? Is he 6'2"?
I don't know. I'd say he could be more. I've never met the man.
He's more, anyway.
But like, he's every bit of 14 and a half, 15 stone. So what that does, I don't think people realise, when you have a big man inside the square, right, who can move, and notice how he's always in front. He is always in front. So he's big and he's mobile. That will automatically nullify the spare defender, the third defender. Yeah. Because if you were a pacey forward, right, that defender can stay deep inside you, right beside you, and he can read the ball as it comes in, because it's usually coming in low. You know what I'm saying? It's usually coming in, let's say, twice your head height, and you can read to it, and then you can beat a man for pace, and out you go. When you've got a big man there's a square who can move and take a ball high, that sweeper or that third defender is out. He can't do anything. He literally can't do anything, because if you stay beside him, he'll go out over you. If you stay in front of him, he'll run past you. Like, the options that you get when you have someone who of size, who is so mobile, it's so unlimited. And to see how Limerick have another, I didn't think they could add another string to the boat, to be honest. And here they are. And even to shooting, if you check the shooting from 60 yards from Aidan O'Connor, like, let's just say he was taking Keane Lynch's position there for the short term, right? That's him. Who have you seen that can shoot, let's say, nearly on a sixpence, in around 60 yards, left and right, bad weather conditions like that before? There's very few of the Limerick players. There's nobody in midfield that could do it. Hegarty probably would have to stand, you know what I mean? Yeah. Morrissey can do it. Now they've added another one. So now they've added another striker who on the half-forward line can shoot from 70 yards. Now we move Keane Lynch out to midfield. Did Darragh Donovan drop out? These are questions I'm asking myself after yesterday.
Yeah, and it's a fair point as well, because like if you're talking about Will O'Donoghue potentially not being in midfield, the idea that Aidan O'Connor, like Cian Lynch, may be at midfield with Darragh Donovan, for example, and Aidan O'Connor, like at the moment, it's like, again, you just have to go off what you're looking at. 11 points and 6 from play. How much more does a fella have to do to maybe warrant a start at centre forward? And I'd agree with you, the style of the points as well. Like, it was a bad night. So Saturday night was terrible conditions in Thurles, and he was doing it really well. His striking was outstanding. And what was really noticeable as well about Limerick was that they were able to create, as we've seen with Limerick for so many years, those opportunities where running right through the middle, they had a lad off the shoulder who broke, let's say, the line, the Tipperary line, and we're now running that goal with 5-6 yard space to strike. We saw Adam English doing it. We saw Aidan O'Connor doing it. We saw plenty of lads breaking that line. Potentially, again, one of the additions was Kyle Hayes returning to the 7 position. Like, again, he broke the line several times, and the fact that he was able to just win the ball and drive on, like, I suppose was enough of an attacking threat that it drew Tipperary players onto him. But I'd agree with you. It's actually a way I didn't think of it was that, a lot of those lads will be told not to shoot in certain positions. Like, I think Darragh O'Donovan, Will O'Donoghue, and these lads, they don't necessarily shoot from certain positions. And even Tom Morrissey, he shoots in a certain, obviously moving towards goal, etc. I think Garrod Hegarty is quite similar. Garrod Hegarty, as we said, a very relaxed shot, can strike from anywhere, particularly once the summer comes, he'll put it over from anywhere. But Aidan O'Connor is so dynamic in his movement, and in terms of what he has in his locker, it's probably more closely linked to the likes of Cian Lynch than you would compare him to any of the other players. And I suppose another lad we didn't mention was Peter Casey with 4 points. Like, again, I suppose returning after injury. We haven't even mentioned him. 4 points from play, returning to, I suppose, that role that we associate him with. But look, I think for a lot of people, I know one of the things people say at this time of the year is like, let's say Tipperary or Limerick or Galway or whoever, we didn't have close to our starting team, etc. Look, like, every team is doing that at the moment. And I think both Liam Cahill and John Kiley made 6 changes from the last weekend. Yeah. So, like, from the weekend off, from the last time they played. So, okay, both teams are making changes, but at the same time, again, I think it just comes back to that performance for us. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
I want to ask you a question, Murph, because I picked up on something that Henry Shefflin said last night on the RT analysis post-game. He said that he asked the question, maybe Liam Cahill was playing some tricks and games in terms of his selection by not putting in Rhys Shelley and putting in Barry Hogan instead.
Okay.
That got me thinking. Of course, he had to ask the question. So I went back and watched it again. I had to watch the game again, right? Just to see, like, did Barry Hogan have any impact on Tipperary's woes, or was he a causation of it? To be clear, he was no causation of it whatsoever.
Okay. Yeah.
So, like, for my count, they got 25 puckouts in the first half. He had 14 out of 15 inside of 65. Accurate. Through hand. Perfect. And then when we went long, Tipperary guys got 8 alive, 2 out of 10.
Yeah.
And I posed the next question, and I watched Limerick as well. Is anybody hitting past 65 anymore? Because
in terms of for puckouts,
in terms of position, I know, like, I would class long is going to be under 65 and short within your 65, just to draw some kind of, I suppose, line, if you know what I'm saying. So they had 15 short, Tipperary did, and they won 14, and they were able to bypass the Limerick half back line.
Yeah.
Now Kilkenny were so effective in the week previous. With Tallis hitting the likes of I think we touched on it, Kilkenny, Jordan Malloy, and they were able to get over the crowd and put the ball into a 50-50 contest in the Limerick full back line. Tipperary couldn't do that last night. They weren't able to do it. So then I look at Mickey Quay's puckouts. He was hitting predominantly short as well. And I'm saying, is the day of the 50-50 down top of half back lines gone? Our team's so fit and so athletic that they can get forwards and midfield back into their defence and then create a wave of attack again. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or you land the ball down to top of the 5 and 12 positions. Contest. It breaks. It goes up to midfielder. Next thing you have a wave of green coming at you. I think teams now, and even in Limerick as well, are looking at this going, no, we're going to keep possession and we're going to put it into a position, i.e. the full forward, and that even if we do get turned over, we have plenty of bodies behind that to stop this wave happening. I just see it happen over and over. Billy Nolan did enough. Owen Murphy, I wouldn't normally associate even today with short puckouts, i.e. inside his own 50-yard line. Did I hate with them today again?
Yeah.
Billy Nolan, we know, does a lot of them. So the game is turning toward. It was already turned. It was a possession game, but now it's turned even more. Whereby we're starting the ball, we're keeping the ball inside, and we're going to move it beyond your half back line, so as that if we do get turned over, we have numbers on the right side. That's the pace and athleticism of players nowadays, that they can transfer a ball 3 or 4 passes up, score.
Yeah.
So we're trying to pin them back, a bit like the rugby kick nowadays, where you pin them back if they're 22 and say, right, try to get past us.
I think there's always when people often mention, like, let's say, is this gone from the game? I always ask myself, like, is there a reason why in a few years' time people might revert back to this type of play? I think there's two things with it. I think the time of the year, we often look at this time of the year when that free lands, puck out. If you do a puck out down on top of, we'll say, Diarmaid Byrnes and Jason Ford, for example, you do that ball lands. It's landing and it's staying where it hits the ground. It's not going anywhere past that. So at this time of the year, those long puck outs are very tough for forwards. If you don't win a first time, maybe a ruck, but it's generally a defensive ball. The ball is stopped. It's not traveling any further. Whereas in summertime, if they miss that or hits a helmet or whatever, it could carry another 20, 25 yards, depending. It could fly somewhere because the conditions allow it. Now, so I think generally when it comes to summer, you'll see that open up a small bit. There is 100%. Teams are looking to keep the ball, keep possession. That's obvious, and they're going to keep doing that. But I think the only way that this may revert back where we start seeing the longer puck outs is you have to ask yourself what scenario might happen because of that. If teams start to value the short puck out so much, well, then everybody's going to start targeting, I think, the short puck out in terms of counteracting it. So, for example, if you go, right, Limerick, for example, teams will start targeting Nicky Quaid's short puck out. How can we, go against that? And I'm talking about this over a couple of years. And eventually they're like, right, we're going to squeeze up on them. We're going to pressure them up high so they can't get the short puck outs off. What happens there? Around the half-hour line starts to open up because from 9 up to 15, if they go to start squeezing, well, now suddenly that space that was congested over the previous years now starts to open up. And I think, like we were referring to, if I'm not confusing the situation, like we're referring to over the last couple of weeks, with the ball into the edge of the box with the number 14, big number 14, keep it simple, landed on him. Mm-hmm. I think you might see a situation there then where half-forward lines, again, become big ball winners where lads go and try and win it. Like I'm talking about, like, this could be a systematic thing over a couple of years. It's not a thing of turns overnight, and that's what teams like to do. I'd agree with you. Every team is trying to hold on to possession, and that's a big thing that we're trying to do. However, I always ask myself, well, if possession and sharp puck outs become the most important thing, teams will automatically as well try and find a way of overriding that. How do you override it? You get up on your man. If you get up on your man, you create the space down the field. So I always think these things come in cycles, and I think you can apply it to a lot of things. But look, again, I don't think it's not going to happen this year. I don't see anyone trying to change the wheel for this year.
No,
another thing, actually, sorry, just to throw something into you. This is one I mentioned it to Will because Will is listening. For any listeners, he is listening into us. He does know that we're recording this at the moment. But I mentioned it to him that I meant to say to you. Something I noticed as well is happening, and I noticed it in this match, the Limerick Tipperary match, but I also noticed it then in Kilkenny and Waterford. Teams are at this time of the year dropping balls short. It usually happens. Take a shot from midfield, ball's a bit heavy, drops into keeper's hands. Nobody's really pressuring the keepers anymore. They're letting the keeper win the ball and letting them come out. Yep. So I'm throwing that completely at you now. In our day, it was a thing where it was blasphemy if you didn't keep the keeper honest and there wasn't someone in there putting pressure on the keeper and dropping the ball in the hand and tackling. What's your view on that now? Like, do you notice that happening?
Yeah, so I'd be in favour of that. Let's say I'd be coaching that into forwards.
So don't pressure the keeper or do.
Yeah, unless you're in the vicinity, unless you're within 5 or 6 yards of the keeper, don't even bother. Don't waste that run. It's a bit like in soccer, Murph, where if the keeper gets it and you have the centre forward runs all the way to the box and they just bypass them. They're using the team's press against them, is what I call it. Okay. So if you take your full forward out, let's say in today's terms, one Murphy got a ball, right? Let's say curtain or someone runs in, then it's a straight exit pass out. Now Waterford are a man down straight away. Whereas if you're let's say the opposition and Murphy gets the ball, just let him have it for the moment, right? He's only going to carry it so far, and then you have numerical parity off the field. That's the way I see. Now, obviously, you can have tussles inside the squares, inside the big parallelogram. That will warrant a tackle on the keeper, and more. I'd say more intent to turn over the keeper. But if it's a long shot, Murphy, and it's coming in, and he's got at least 10 or 15 yards, just forget about it. Drop off, get into a defensive position, and make sure you've got number to number, if you like. Yeah. Don't let a spare man develop in the opposition defence and then they run through you. That's the way the game is at the moment because teams will exit through you so fast. And force them to go along where you've got numbers. That's really it.
Yeah, I know. I just noticed it because when balls are landed into Barry Hogan, it was very obvious. And I kind of expect this out of Limerick as well, that they just completely know, it seems drilled into them. Every decision they're going to make in the field, outside of the automatic stuff with the hurling and all that stuff, tactically, they just know what they're going to do. So when the ball dropped short, none of them were running in, and it looked like they knew that like Paul Kinnerk has talked through this. We know what we're not doing, or we know what we're doing that we're not going to chase it in. And then because I saw it in that match, I was like, is anyone else doing it? And then I noticed that more so Kilkenny weren't doing it. I'm trying to think. There was one or two occasions where ball dropped in towards Owen Murphy and there was opportunity to compete, and Waterford did. But I just noticed a small bit more that maybe Kilkenny dropped a few more short than Waterford. If that's probably a better way to put it. But look, it's an interesting one. We'll keep an eye on it. But look, I suppose to look at other games then as well, keeping with Saturday night. Dublin 419, Wexford 322. William O'Callaghan tells us this is the second highest ever scoring league match. If it's not, ever, by the way. If it's not, absolutely correct. I'm going to throw Will under the bus in that one. But draw a match up in Croke Park. Chris Crummy with the score just at the death to get the draw from Dublin for a 13-man Dublin. For Dublin, the scores: Donald Burke 1-9. John Hedgehoe got 2 goals, and he traded them with Kevin Foley. Kevin Foley for Wexford got 2 goals as well. Simon Roach at the other end for Wexford got 10 points. Lee Chin with 1-1. Goal come from penalty, and then also for Dublin, Cian O'Sullivan with 1-1, who were kind of the main scorers on both sides. I suppose from this side, it'll go as a kind of, I suppose, a point dropped in a race for promotion for both of these. Dublin will feel a bit better, as you would have seen at the final whistle. As a lot of people were saying, it's like they were celebrating winning the league. But Chris Crummy popped up. Look, I mean, Jesus, a man who's been leading Dublin for so many years. I think he was announced as their captain just before the game for the year. But Chris Crummy popped up in the 75th minute to equalize the game. And after that, then I suppose one of the big talking points was the bit of needle afterwards. There was huge needle in the game. And afterwards, in particular, we saw Niall O'Callaghan and Keith Roster going at it on the sideline. We saw players trading it. One of the interesting things, I'm not going to take from it, I met Lee Chin a few weeks ago. He's an absolute animal, but I did see photos of him squaring up to Hedgehoe. And I was like, by God, there's not many men. Skehill, I think you said it. There's not many men that make Lee Chin look normal size. I'm not even going to say small, look normal size, because he's huge.
Well, I heard a story of Murph about that man, Hedgehoe.
Go on. First of all, sorry, might I just remind you as well, the man who gave me my packing list for the hospital as well, not to bring up babies again this week. But
so there's a softer side.
If anyone misses it, he's a gentle giant. But go on anyway. What did you notice?
Well, not that I noticed. I was told today a story. Big Tom, the guard, my friend, I would call him brother-in-law, but he did his training. Seemingly, you do this specific training for riot control, if you like.
CRC, counter riot control.
Yeah. So Tom was telling me today, and I think I'm allowed to say this. I won't get him in trouble. But the training they were doing, he had himself, Hedgehoe. There was Brendan Murphy from Carlo. Yeah. There was a fourth guy. He was a GAA player as well. I believe he was a footballer. Tom will correct me during the week. I forget his name. But they were doing it against the army, right? And the army were I think they were brought in, elements of the army were brought in to try and, I suppose, recreate some rioters.
I'll explain just very briefly on that one. We have riot control training as well, and so do the guards. So it depends for different capacities. Yeah, so we're trained together, but go on.
But I was trying to get to the crux of it all. I was kind of asking Tom, what's Hedgehoe like in a riot situation? And he goes, oh my God, he said.
An animal.
He said, that man with a shield is dangerous. He said he nearly controlled the army by himself. So when he had those couple of guys going together, and like Tom is, 6'8", Hedgehoe was a big boy himself. Brendan Murphy as well. Brendan Murphy with shields, let's say, and a bit of power. I said, there's no holding it back. So if you get Hedgehoe's temper up, get him riled up.
I don't know if you saw one of the goals he got, but it was a one-handed goal. Again, it was just him barreling through, throwing up. And it was just, the one thing I liked about it was just pure instinct. Like, not even instinct. It was just natural. Like, where he was after breaking the tackle, probably knew that if he threw two hands on the hurl, even that fraction of a second, he was going to get a hook. So just tennis style slapped it in. And then, it was a savage goal. I've been corrected. Sorry, I've been corrected by Will. It's the second highest drawn game ever. So that's what it is. The highest is 66 points shared by Limerick and Clare in the 2018 quarterfinal after extra time. Okay, right. That takes the gloss off of the small bit. I thought it was. I thought. Go on.
And Wexford and Dublin, aren't they formulating a nice little rivalry?
They are.
Over the last couple of years, like obviously they're nearly reaching parity now. Year on, year off. Who knows? The toss of the coin every year, depending on which venue they play the games in. But it's getting a bit saucy,
It is, and it's good because, I'm thinking of one or two of the performances there. I think what Wexford won't like is that this is the third time now in my recollection. So Dublin were coming into one of the round robins. Again, it's going to be 2 or 3 years ago. And they hadn't really shown much of form coming into it. They went down to Wexford Park and they won the game. Like I'm gonna tell you exactly the game with a gameplay. Danny Sutcliffe blocked down. I think it was Matthew O'Halloran or Liam Ryan. It was one of them. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, over on the TV side, he died.
Yeah, that was it. And they won the match that night, I'm fairly sure. You look back, I'm fairly sure last year, wasn't it? Dublin were 6 points down with like 5 minutes to go, and they rattled off 2 goals down in Wexford Park again. I'm trying to think when that was. That was round robin again. So, like, again, this drawn one, I think, will grate on Wexford maybe a small bit more. And as well, for Wexford, considering, you know, the down match that they kind of drew that into a cagey affair, like a win here against Dublin would I suppose bolster a lot of the stuff they're doing. So I think for Dublin, for Wexford, they'll be very disappointed. But I think, again, the another point I was thinking about with Dublin was just that Dublin will be delighted with this from the point of view that, like, Niall O'Callaghan will be able to say that, you know, we had an opportunity here where we could have left this game behind us, going down to 13 men and maybe saying, look, it's not our night, and losing the match by a point or two. But the fact that they took something from this game, like when this league is finished, let's say the normal phase is finished, this point could be the difference between them getting promoted or not getting promoted, depending on what way or you know, like in terms of when they bring forward their form to championship. I think these points along the way do a lot for your mentality, do a lot for what you're talking about in the dressing room in terms of working hard, you know, if you're down by 2 or 3 points, we're going to get a result here. Like, that was a big result for them to get. So I just think there's a bit more to this one that Dublin will maybe take away from. And I don't think there's anything to come from this by way of, like, I know there was a bit of, it wasn't a melee. I know we're getting popular to call it melees over the last few weeks. It wasn't a melee. It was just a bit of shouldering and jostling and all that sort of crack. But I don't think there's anything going to fall out of this whereby there'll be any major suspension like that. I didn't see anything anyway.
No, I didn't either. Like, and to be honest, if I asked the question, I was looking forward to this game, and I was disappointed when it wasn't being shown nationally in any kind of form. Because the 2 questions I had was, number 1, what were Dublin going to produce, seeing as that we hadn't heard an awful lot about them?
Yeah. And
then 2, what Wexford were going to produce, seeing as we've seen them a couple of times against what we were classed as inferior opposition, and kind of limp over the line. So when you look at the results, and all I can do is look at the numbers. I've seen no highlights as of yet. Like, Wexford came away at 25 scores. You know, Lee Chin, there was no real dependency on Lee Chin last night than we've grown accustomed to over the last couple of years. He scored 1-1, one of goal, which was the penalty. So he contributed 1 point from play, just from the scoring elements. He probably contributed more in the game. And so the scoring was spread. I think there was like something like 12 scores for Limerick. That's what, for Wexford, excuse me. That's what Wexford people, that's what the Wexford team, they need themselves. You know, you see Simon Roach coming in. I asked the question 2 weeks ago. I was worried for Wexford, to be honest. I didn't see enough youth coming through and putting a stamp on the team. Now Simon Roach comes in and contributes, albeit from the dead ball, which I would say Wexford haven't been in the top tier of the last number of years for. So there's been positives. And I know you look at the draw and you say, it's a point lost. It's also a point gain. And sometimes when you have these big shooting games in a nice venue, you know, you can take loads of positives from it. You won't be Wexford won't be going on now. Tuesday night thinking of all the negatives. There's things to review. There's things to improve on. But they come away and then say to themselves, yeah, we did a great tussle. We'll meet them again. Great number of scores. You know, got some young guys into the score sheet. Didn't have any over dependence on Chin. And we're moving forward, albeit we're creeping forward in a nice direction. And even if you look at the table, they are on, is that 7 they're on, is it? 7. There's 7 points from 4 games. Not terrible. We're clear to play. Right?
And they're unbeaten, isn't it?
We're clear to play, excuse me.
Yeah.
So it's not a huge, you know, doom and gloom kind of situation for them. They've won the games they've had to win, albeit the manner wasn't as impressive as you'd like.
Yeah.
But the same could be said for Clare, Murph. You know, you could say, when you say impressive as you like, you would expect Clare to be dominating across the board here.
Yeah,
you know,
true.
And it's kind of up and down. There's been flashes of dominance, but flashes of not so dominant.
Yeah.
So I think if you're assessing Wexford over the last fortnight, you'd have to assess it kind of semi-positively. And here I was doom and gloom about them for the future. That may still happen, but right now, not bad.
No, absolutely. I mean, they're unbeaten at the moment, which is any team unbeaten at this stage you'd be very happy with. You'd be saying, look, we're doing a lot right.
Yeah.
Again, another game whereby, that Antrim match, that was, very close. They could have not come away with a result there. Again, the down one, albeit they'll want to cast that, I suppose, to the ashes. Again, they could have gotten cagey. The game did get cagey, but they could have, I suppose, maybe bent a knee there. But look, again, I suppose the big challenges coming up is that they have Clare coming up. That'll be a huge challenge. And then Kildare, which probably leads us nicely into the next match. That was on Saturday, was Kildare and Clare. Again, Kildare 3-14, Clare 27 points. Kildare took off at an awful rate here. Coming up before half time, up by 4 points, really causing Clare a lot of problems. And it was a really good Clare team as well. It wasn't a case that, it's no offense to any other extended Clare panel member, but, you had your Mark Rogers, you had your Tony Kelly, you had your David Fitzgerald, McInerney's, Conor Cleary's, Dermot Ryan's, John Conlon's. You had a lot of serious players, Ryan Taylor's, etc. So it's a huge one for Kildare. Again, maybe tying it in for me with the Tipperary performance, and it's not jumping on Tipperary's back. Kildare lose this match by X amount of points, but they can take a lot from the performance in it based off, the performances over the last couple of weeks. Clare as well, similarly enough, like at the end of the day, they have 8 points on the board. Like, they're very happy. They went away to play Kildare away as well, which is no mean feat as we've seen over the last while. And again, like we're saying with Wexford, where a game got cagey against Down, but they saw it off in the end. Similar enough with Clare here. Like, Kildare got a goal towards the end and last minute or so that, again, put a small bit of a loss, we'll put it that way, for Kildare to maybe look a little bit closer. But in fairness to Clare in this scenario, they did enough in normal time that they gave themselves a bit of a cushion. But look, again, I suppose we're talking about Brian Dowling over the last couple of weeks with Kieran's with a big result against like a big beating of Antrim last week as well. But I think this is another performance for them that they can really, I suppose, hang their coat on and say, like, Clare are a good team, and a lot of our players went toe-to-toe with a lot of their players as well. So, yeah, I think it's just a huge performance. You obviously probably didn't get to see much of this, Skehill or Anton, but like at the same time, like even just judging by the score and judging by if you read anything about it, savage performance for Kildare. Yeah, I think they can take a lot from it.
Yeah, well, so we track, like, obviously we track the Division 1 teams, you could say, more than others, right?
Yeah,
but we track the Division 1B teams as well, in the sense that I read every review about every game, you could say.
Yeah.
And then if I don't see it in television, I'm trying to find a pattern of players that are influential, players who are adding their names into national discussion. And I keep coming across Jack Sheridan. Keep coming across him, and I know he's on the freeze. That's fine to say, but the more, like, sometimes when teams get promoted and they play against the big teams, there is potential, let's say, for their bigger players, let's say, to get overwhelmed, to get man-marked by the opposition's best player, and sometimes you don't see them in the lights as much against the big teams. You with me?
Yeah.
So Jack Sheridan came away the last day with what, 2-4.
2-4, yeah.
So now, if you're Brian Down, let's say, heading into the Leinster Championship, this is ideal preparation. Yes, they lost the game. I can fully understand that, but they were not beaten heavily in a sense that you nearly lose. You'd lose the will to keep going, which we've seen before. In fairness, we have, and I hate to say it, but like I've often seen before with the Westmeads and the Antrims, and even Offaly sometimes whereby they play against the big teams, they get walloped, and the public, including myself, say, yeah, sure, we expected that.
Yeah.
No, we did. We expected that. I myself, hands in the air, I did not expect this game to be as closely contested as it was. So I am very pleasantly surprised, because we keep harping on about how we want to add teams to the top tier.
Yeah, yeah.
So Kildare's run into the Leinster Championship it's not perfect, don't get me wrong, but it's very positive. It's extremely positive. Now they have 2 points on the board. They're sitting probably in fourth as it were at the moment. They're just behind Dublin, excuse me.
Yeah.
I think they are. So
sorry, I just double check here now. Yeah, they are behind Dublin. There are 2 points on the board. Yeah.
Yeah. So finish the league strong. Let's say try to take a scalp and finish the league strong, and see if you can get to 4 points and walk into a Leinster Championship. So you've as I said to you, you have players adding. I always say putting their names into the lights, putting themselves into national discussion. Yeah. And then if the group going in a nice direction, taking on big teams, it just sets itself up nicely that you can keep building, keep improving. And I think the wider hurling public need it. To be fair, I think we need someone to come. Like, we expected it to be Offaly a couple of years ago. They're not doing too bad, but they need to. Like, Kildare seen that they have the potential, you could say, in terms of numbers. I'm talking about numbers in terms of picking numbers, that they could pass out like an Offaly team in a couple of years. So if they can keep on a trajectory, if they can maintain a standard for the next 2 years, who knows what they'll be in year 3 or year 4. Yeah. So that's why I like to see these. I call them baby steps. You can't make a huge leap over time. Yeah. Baby steps. So I just think the story in Kildare is extremely positive, and long may continue.
Yeah, well, like, I mean, you're dead right. There's a few great points there as well. Like the first one that you mentioned there, just about Jack Sheridan getting 2-4, and again, I know you're saying 1-4 from frees, but a point and a question we got in from a listener there, Wills, after sending it on to me, is that, you know, Kilkenny, for example, the frees weren't polished today against Waterford. But like, so when you compare that with, okay, Jack Sheridan got 1-4 from frees, he's putting them over and he's scoring. And like, there's lots of teams. Even thinking of looking at Cork against Tipperary in the second round of the league this year, and Cork changed around the free taker a few times. Darragh Fitzgibbon took one or two. I think Declan Dalton took one or two, and they were hitting wides. Like, so the importance of the free taker there. And like I said, we have a question in there that we'll refer to in the Kilkenny match. You know, Jack Sheridan's just putting over what's in front of him, and like David Coulter as well, 3 points. Cotton McCabe got a goal as well. So like their spread of scores there are really good. And
the goal,
what's that?
Clare had 4 or what you could say starting backs in their defence.
Yeah.
You know, they had Lee, they had Cleary, they had Ryan, and they had Conlon, and Kildare still came away with 3 goals. Yeah. Whilst they kept a clean sheet up the top.
Yeah, it's a very fair point.
So like, goals aren't easy to get. We talked about Tipperary, how they had a couple of goal chances, but they were chances, you know, that you could say they were half chances, better than penalty shot. But Kildare came away with 3. Yeah. And you have to say if you're getting goals on a regular basis, which they did against Antrim as well, you know, that's sign of a team that has Iowa class intent. Yeah. Not just private intent.
Yeah, but like when you're saying there as well about the goals and keeping them out down the far end, like it's a marker as well. Like we often talk about here, is there measurables that you can turn around and point towards? Like it mightn't explain the greater context of the game, but it's something where you can turn around and say, we kept a clean sheet by way of goals against Clare. That's something. There's definitely a thing you can sift through there and definitely work with. But look, another great news story for Kildare. Great news story. They didn't win the match, but you know, keep going. They know what I'm saying. They know what I'm saying. But fair play to them. And then the last game, look, in Division 2 on Saturday, Laois 118, Kerry 117. I'll be straight out. I followed this one through Buff Egan's story because I was on the move and it was the only way I could see it, and he covered a nice amount of it. From my understanding as well, Kerry finished with 13, if I'm correct in saying that as well, and it was a spirited performance by Kerry as well, having read a few bits about it as well. But I think it's more so a fact, I suppose, once it comes around to championship, you know, I think Kerry will be going, look, we're looking at Laois here now, Joe McDonough, you know, there's no reason why we can't find ourselves up and around, you know, the business end of that. And if it's a case whereby they meet Laois again, you know, at a semi-final, at whatever stage it might be, and you're trying to get yourself to Joe McDonough, I think Kerry will be going, there's no reason why we can't have a good tilt at these boys. So, that was the final, I suppose, result for us from Division 2 on Saturday. Bringing us to Sunday. So from 1A, I suppose the match to start with here today is Kilkenny 121, Waterford 120. Look, we spoke last weekend. I'm thinking back, you know, when we were discussing this, and I was saying I was really looking forward to it because I thought, based off the likes of, and I pointed to 2 lads, Dan Shannon and Eddie Brennan, and where I saw Waterford and Kilkenny at the moment, I expected a bit of a battle and a bit of a performance, and you know, I think we got that from both sides. I saw a lot of the reaction to this as well. I know a lot of people were saying, some people were saying it was a poor game. Some really enjoyed it. Personally, myself, I actually enjoyed it as a game because it was close. There was mistakes all over the place on both sides, absolutely. And a few people were maybe saying that, a few of Sean Stack's calls. I think the reason people were pointing out Sean Stack's calls was because it was a tight, kind of a gritty game like that. And there was a few tackles, you know, not to say borderline, but they were on the edge. But that's kind of what we expect from it. So the fact that, look, it was a close game. Keane Kenny's point in the 65th minute was what was the difference. Keane Kenny came out at 7 points, 6 from frees. Mossy Keown, man of the match, 1-2. And other scores then from Kilkenny, Liam Moore, Owen Cody, David Blanchfield, 2 points each. I thought Liam Moore was outstanding as well, in fairness to him. It was something we mentioned last week, and I'll jump on to Waterford now in a second, but something we mentioned last week was just lads who aren't established on teams. And again, we mentioned it with likes of Aidan O'Connor and different lads, that lads who aren't established on teams putting their hand up for a jersey. I think Liam Moore really did a savage job today. He was down as full forward, but came out the field. Jesus, I saw him on his own 45 at one stage, just tackling. Won a lot of really dirty ball, kind of in the same manner as Shane O'Brien, which I thought was really, really positive. That was like, I don't care how I'm going to win this ball, just send it into me. So a good shout for Liam Moore there. At the other side then, Waterford, Sean Welch with 1-2, Stephen Bennett with 5 points, 2 frees in the 65. And then Sean Mackey then with 3 points. And then you had other lads jumping in as well. Shane Bennett, I can't think of his second score, but he got one from underneath what's called the old stand. It's actually the newer stand at this stage in Nolan Park, but the old stand on the 65. We talk about Aidan O'Connor with the points in bad conditions. Conditions today weren't anything special either, but Shane Bennett popping over a ball from on the midfield line at the sideline at this stage of February in heavy enough ground, a heavy ball, etc., etc. It was absolutely outstanding score. But look, it was a very close game. Like I said, 75th minute free by Cian Kenny was really what the difference was. Waterford were really good. I think for me, the big thing I take away from Waterford here, and we talk about what Liam Call is going to be saying to Tipperary on Tuesday. I think what Peter Quealy is going to be saying to Waterford is, lads, the first half wides. Like for me, when I was watching it as a Kilkenny supporter, I was going, happy enough Waterford are hitting these, but I kind of had them in the back of my head that they were hitting wides. And when the game got closer, I was thinking back to those wides and I said, if they had put over 75% of those wides, they'll be up by 3 or 4 points at this stage. And at that stage, it changes their mindset as to seeing out the game. But they never got out of that, I suppose, that safe area of 2 scores for Kilkenny, or like getting out of the safe area of 1 score, I suppose, for Kilkenny to really be rattled by it. And I think what Kilkenny will be happy about likewise then is that, like, they were a bit disjointed in the second half. They were really good in the first half. They were moving the ball really well, but they were a bit disjointed in the second half. But the main thing was that they dug out the result in the end, which again, at this time of the year, probably very similar to Dublin against Wexford. Digging out a result can often be, if you take that from a game, fantastic, because it might be pretty effective. Yeah, exactly. You know, and they took something from the game. Like, they have 2 points on the board after that. Like, and Waterford can feel disappointed because Waterford coming down the home stretch looked like they had a bit more momentum than Kilkenny. Looked like, do you know what, they might do enough here to maybe see out the game. But I think both sides, what Waterford, like I said, will look at is the wides in the first half. They'll just go, Jesus, if we got them, this could have been a different game. Kilkenny, what they look at is we were disjointed. They lost their shape in the second half, and I think that's something they'll look at. And then a few interesting points then as well is, I think David Blanchfield at midfield, I really liked him at midfield, and I think something I saw with him there was that he kind of dropped into the same space as Corcoran as well, as Derek Corcoran. So like, you had 2 absolute mammoths of men operating in and around that 6th position. Do you know, like, I mean, you're named at midfield, but you can drift back. Whereas Jordan Malloy then was doing a lot of that running kind of up the field. So that was something there. And then again, I suppose if you mentioned the midfield, Jamie Barron with 2 points as well. So there's a lot to unpack there. But look, I don't know, what were your views as a neutral looking at the game? What did you take away from it?
Well, I first of all, I really enjoyed the game. I thought it was a really good contest considering the time of year. And I know conditions are tough. It's very hard to get that kind of imagery across the television. You don't get the full extent of it, but it was obviously there was a very big breeze. I think that was a major contribution to Waterford's shooting issues. Yeah. They shot from long, and they shot from very long worth of times. Like, I'm all for, these big scores every now and then, but shooting from your own, like 21, 3 times in the first half, it just didn't scream efficiency to me, especially when you've got forwards inside who can do damage. So I think ball possession is so important when you have the breeze. So that obviously to make hay when the sun shines, as they say, Murph, but I just didn't think Waterford did enough. But in the same breath, they went down by, I think, 6 at one stage, very early doors, and they came back and they were only a point down heading into half time. So I just, like, something you said to me stuck with me. Like, if that was last year under an outside manager, and I mean this respectfully, Waterford would have potential for that game to get away from them badly. Because then there would be a level of anxiousness, there'd be a bit of narkiness, you know what I'm saying, with each other. But, and I always use this phrase, if you're emotional about something, right, that's temporary. Emotion is temporary, right? But if it's personal, it's permanent. So when you hear the wording come out of Peter Quealy and Dan Shannon about pride in the Waterford jersey, pride in the Waterford jersey, trying to get back to the top tier hurling, that becomes personal. You with me? Yeah. So then that automatically instills intent into your team. So even if you're 5 or 6 points down, keep at it, keep rocking, keep going, keep driving. And what it does is it brings you back into the game. And you're only a point down at half time. I turned to my father-in-law. I was watching the game beside him. And when I saw the breeze, I thought, geez, this could be a 5 or 6 point defeat for Waterford when you consider the conditions. Because normally you put value on a breeze at that strength. And I was pleasantly surprised to see that they were a point up with 68 minutes gone. But then they didn't shoot again for another 7 minutes. Not a huge concern. I think we talked about momentum last week in the sense that Waterford had picked up momentum after a tricky enough start. I think they still have it. I think, to be fair, I know they didn't come away with 2 points. They only, they could say they maybe let this one slip. But I'd be very happy if I was Peter Queally coming away today. I'd be delighted with the fact that I still don't have my full team out. I still don't have my full plethora of players. I'm only reintroducing players, as we saw with Jesse Hutchinson today in the Ballygunner boys.
Yeah.
I don't have my full complement, under my wing, let's say, for the last 2 months. So there's still major room for improvement. But in saying that, Kilkenny, I've just been really impressed with the Kilkenny new guys. Like, I wanted to ask you about Liam Moore. Like, he's a Dicksboro man. I don't, again, my memory is not great at the best of times. I don't remember his name before. I don't know where he came from. I don't know what age he is. I want to know a bit more about him when I get to it in a second. But I also want to touch on the fact that you made a great point. We were texting the Mossy Keown goal, right?
Yeah. So that's actually a big point to mention.
It reminded me yesterday, for everyone who watched rugby and they saw McCluskey's tackle on Marcus Smith. You remember McCluskey raised him down, tackling Marcus Smith. And do you remember seeing Andy Farrell in the crowd? He gave the first fist pump, right?
Yeah.
Because of the tackle. And the second fist pump, he went crazy because he put him out over the line, right? That's a manager being really, really proud of effort that takes no talent, right?
Yeah.
And we watch Mossy Keown. The easy thing to do there is just let your man clear the ball, right? But he goes, and the word I use is venomous, to turn him over, and he creates a goal for his own team. Like that to me, like, is just, if you could instill that attitude into every one of your forwards, wouldn't you have a great starting block? You'd have first of all, you'd have 6 defenders up there. Yeah. And it'd be a nightmare for opposition. But sometimes that doesn't happen enough. Even in my own country, it doesn't happen enough. So to watch Mossy Keown, we're big fans of this pod and the way he's been playing the last couple of years, the way he sticks that goal. That's invaluable to a team, especially when you're playing against the breeze that strong. So I always talk about what's in the water in Kilkenny about tackling. It's like he take more pride in the tackle than he did in the goal, I'd say, that man. But
you're dead right. Like, I think it's definitely something that in that scenario, it's obviously the points on the board is what you want, but seeing that your players have the intent to do that, that's the thing that like a goal like that is worth more over the long term in terms of like the management turning around to the lads. Again, we keep talking about this thing on Tuesday night. I'm taking things from the game to say, lads, do you see that? That's top class. Yeah. And again, if we look at other games, because some of the best ways to look at this is to contrast it with other games as well. Like just for this weekend, if you take this weekend as a standalone, did we see Tipperary forwards doing that, full forward line doing that? Liam Cahill will turn around and say, lads, no, we didn't. And they won't be talking about Mossy Keown. But Derek Ling on the other side will be looking, going, lads, that's absolutely top class. If you want to be a full forward, you want to be part of this team, that's the tackling we expect from you. He won't even mention the goal. He won't mention after that, but he'll just mention the endeavour to turn around and get a little flick and get a block. And that's the real tangible stuff that lads take at this time of the year. And I loved it. Like when I was watching in real time and I saw him sprinting, and it was such a perfectly timed block that the Waterford defender was nearly taken out of the play because Mossy knew he was going to get there, flicks it, and then it's gone. And yeah, I just think a lot of... Sorry?
It wasn't even a flick. That's kind of
a slap.
Give me that fucking ball. Give it to me.
Yeah,
I'm taking that ball off you, basically, right? And it wasn't even like he flicked it off him with a bit of finesse. He came in swinging, and he said, give me that fucking ball. And if it was a free, it's a free, but he got it. And he swung so hard, they put the ball in front of him, 6 or 7 yards?
Absolutely, yeah. Like he had to run onto the ball afterwards.
I just love it. I just love that.
Yeah.
No, it was. Go back a second. Liam Moore.
Yeah.
Talk to this kid. Who is this fella? What age is he, first of all? Is he young?
I think Liam Moore, he's young, obviously. Yeah, Liam is around. I'm on the spot now. Would he be 21? Would he be 20? You're after catching me on the hop there. But he was with the Kilkenny Minors a couple of years ago. Like, and really, when he was minor with Kilkenny, he performed. Like, he performed really well. Even with the Borough over the last couple of years, he's been performing really well. I suppose, why wouldn't you know him? It's a hard one to say, really. I suppose. Maybe now it's where you're getting to know him because he's starting to make a name for himself. Good all-round hurler, extremely strong, like very strong physical player, can play anywhere from 10 to 15 and does with the Borough. But just great physicality, but great hands and great skill as well to back it up. He's not just kind of in there. He is, and loves running at lads as well, which is great. Like the fact that he is willing to run at players and take them on is another thing that can define the player as well. Like if you get a ball, like some players like to play outside the man they're marking, Liam Moore will take a ball and run at you. And we saw it several times today where he was making that dart through the middle. And I think was it his first point he got where he basically kind of took it and broke through a tackle. It was kind of a sloppy ball, if I'm correct in saying, broke through. Granted, he was on the DSA at that stage and popped it straight over, but very clear in his thoughts in terms of what he wanted to do. And again, I mentioned it at the start. We spoke about lads last week. I think I mentioned Ruben Halloran last week as well in terms of a Waterford player that is putting their hand up. he can go home tonight now and go, Jesus Christ, I don't see why Derek Lyng wouldn't give me a jersey against Cork now. And I'd like to see him start as well, because I just think that he earned it. And you know, I think he kind of, any manager has to reward that type of performance as well. So,
but otherwise he undermines his message at the team, doesn't he, though? If you keep harping on, I presume managers are harping on about the same kind of messages like that. If whoever is put their hand up and taking the jersey and performing at a really high level will be getting the jersey. So if you have someone like Moore who did really well for me, did really well, he deserves to start. If you don't start him, you're kind of undermining your own message. Yeah. And I have to say, I have to go back to what I said last week. I can't see a situation now, and after watching the way Cork play today, how you don't play him continuously. Not even how you don't play him, how you don't say to him, listen, you're our 6. That's it for the year. You're our 6. Keep going and fill the man with confidence, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah. For you as a Kilkenny man, you know an awful lot more about him than I would, obviously. But are you content now if someone said to you, he's your 6th for the year?
Oh, I would, yeah. Like, I mean, I know lads are getting passionate. Like, I feel, again, I'm a big supporter of Richie Reid from a point of view that I really think at times he doesn't get the credit he deserves. He's one of the best, if not the best defender in Kilkenny. And I think lads often kind of overlook that. But with that said, when you're asking me the question of if someone said to me, Darragh Corcoran's going to be centre back this year, I would say absolutely. Like, because at the end of the day, we don't see what's going on in training. Mm-hmm. So if I see a 15 produced whereby, you know, you have Darragh Corcoran as centre back and Richie Reid as left half back or whatever team they pick, if I see Darragh Corcoran at 6, I have absolutely no issue with that. And another point where I'm looking at going, I like the look of it, and I'd have no issue if it came to championship, was David Blanchfield at 9. I'm looking at that going, Jesus Christ, where like to have that man's size on the field and he's able to back it up with, I think he got a point today as well, to back it up with the hurling as well, which Blanchfield can. I'm just like, I'm thinking back to Will O'Donoghue, Limerick. Like, you kind of have an enforcer there in the middle of the field who's just going around taking names and hopping off boys, like, you know. So, I like to look at that as well. But look, I to go back and maybe just to finish on Waterford. Actually, we have a question in there as well. Will sent to me, but I don't think it kills Waterford's momentum either at all. Like, you know, Waterford started against Cork, poor performance. You know, won't be happy with that. Bounce back then with a mighty performance against Limerick. But I think we've spoken positively about Waterford over the last couple of weeks, and I'm still speaking positively about them, particularly for the point that you made, Skehill, that we are now seeing Fitzgerald and all the boys coming back from Ballygunner, Desi Hutchinson, the boys. Like, that's going to be a huge thing. They could never just inject those lads straight back into the team. Mm-hmm. They're going to have to slowly bring them back in. But I think you see with their next game, you see Desi Hutchinson starting and you see Fitzgerald as well, because I just think, what's that?
Next game is do or die for them in Galway.
But this is it. You know, there's the time and the place where you're finding the balance, giving lads chances. But they've given plenty of lads chances as well at this stage. So you also kind of have to go with, lads, the main thing is we're staying in 1A and we're building for the championship with potentially a team that we look like might start the Munster Championship as well. So look, I still think Waterford will take a lot from this anyway. They're disappointed with the loss, but they take a lot. We did have one question in there. Will just sent it on to me. So Richard Hogan on Twitter, he asked, I'm not speaking in the third person here, I'm just reading out his tweet as it is. Can you ask Murph about Kilkenny's free taking, and given the recent issues, would it be worth to carry Michael Brennan, who came in today, and the Kilkenny under 20 free taker from last season? So first of all, I'd say no, but I also say that I don't believe if Michael Brennan was starting, you'd be carrying him anyway. I think if anybody who's going to be starting in the 10 to 15 position, there's nobody going to be carried there. We saw John Donnelly coming back today, and we saw the influence that he has. There's plenty more lads come back. We have Adrian Mullen come back from injury, where he might play. Who knows? We saw Cian Kenny a little bit further up the field playing 12 as well, and had a good performance today. Stephen Donnelly as well. So there's lots of lads there. So I think if Michael Brennan starts, it's because he's starting on merit and not because of free taking. And a point I would tie in, Kilkenny will be disappointed. Cian Kenny missed one or two frees at start, went to Owen Cody, and I think his first free was out in middle of the field again near the sideline and hit that wide. I noticed then the next free that Kilkenny got, which was pretty much in front of the goal, Derek Lyng came out and shouted at Cian Kenny, Cian, get on that. Like, he very definitely said, get on that free. So I think there's very much an emphasis that Derek Lyng would be saying to lads that, you know, I think TJ will come back. I think TJ will start the championship, and he will be on the freeze. So I don't think this becomes a question anyway. But in that space, I think in the meantime, you have to have a backup free taker. And I think Derek will be putting the pressure on between Cian Kenny and Owen Cody anyway. So I suppose, Richard Hogan, to answer your question, I don't think you should ever. I don't think any team would carry any player. You can't carry a player is on the freeze, has to contribute from play. That's it. You can't carry anyone. And likewise, I'll say Michael Brennan is good enough to get in and start if he's performing well enough. And if that's the case, he'll be on the team. And that's, I think, pretty much it. Yeah. So then just to, I suppose, to round up the other games then as well, jumping over to your county and our fearless leader who's not with us today, Offaly and Galway. Offaly and Galway, that game was in Burr today, if I'm correct in saying.
You're right.
It was, because I saw Michael Verney as well was really happy with that. Games in Burr. Offaly people love games in Burr. That's the bottom line. Absolutely love it. So Offaly 18 points, Galway 223. Just to go through a few of the scores for Galway. Cathal Mannion, the person that all Galway hurlers love, 1-8, 5 frees. Conor Whelan as well, back on the scoring track as well with 1-1, and Aaron Island. I can't say his name without sounding like I'm saying Aaron Island, but anyway, he got 3 points as well. And Jason Rabbit as well, who, if we're talking about big men, like the Bull O'Brien and like Liam Moore, Jason Rabbit with 3 points as well, Colin Malloy with 3 points. So they had a nice spread of scores as well. Thomas Monaghan with 2. Scores from Offaly then as well. Adam Screeney, who I think was playing snooker on Friday night, if I'm correct in saying. He was playing against Ken Doherty on Friday night. So a man of many talents. Adam Screeney, fresh from his Fitzgibbon, with 7 points, 5 from frees. Brian Dignan, again, another bear in the square. Brian Dignan, 4 points. Jack Clancy with 2, and then a spread of scores after that with 1 point each. So after defeats for Tipperary, by Tipperary and Cork in their opening 2 games, Galway finally got to do their record to get their first win in Division 1 this year. In a relegation shootout in Burr. So Conor Whelan again, like we say, with 1-1 deep into injury time, which extended Galway's winning margin. And yeah, Galway made a flying start as well in the second half. Cathal Mannion getting a goal, which put them 110 to 6 points ahead after 37 minutes. Skehill, resident Galway man, we don't have Will to rebuttal here and tell us about the Offaly side, but from a Galway side, how did you see this one?
I think the result is as expected, to be fair, Murph. As we saw, let's say, with the team lineups, like they were very similar in the Walsh Cup, and I thought the result would be quite similar as well. Even the conditions were pretty much the same as well. It's very hard play, fluid hurling in this weather. So it's basically down to what individual performers do you have on the pitch, basically. So when I see Cathal Mannion there, Nyland, Rabbit, you'd be content to know that there's their scoring prowess there on the field. And this game, to be honest, Murph, not to be too dumb, glum about it or even too hype about it. It was just about getting 2 points from a Galway perspective. Get 2 points. You don't have many opportunities to get points in this league, to be honest, when you're considering the level of teams and where they're at versus where Galway are at in the last couple of years. So get 2 points and get out of town. That's the size of it. And I mean that with the greatest respect, in the sense that I just hope that players come out of that game, no injuries. I believe there was 1 or 2 injuries that Gavin Lee picked up, and one more I can't remember at the moment. But you'd be hoping you didn't get too much collateral damage from the game. Move on, get some scoreless into your younger players, which I was content. I was hoping that I would see that. I mentioned it last week that I wanted to see a continuation of same with the younger players. So when you see Rabbit and Niall get 2 points apiece, that's positive. Colin Malloy is a little forward. That's 3 points. So theoretically speaking, that's 9 points from play from your full forward line. That's positive. I'm really happy with that, because we need to get more minutes into those guys to see what we have. And even the word you used there, the relegation shootout, that gives me the ick. But look, it's reality at the moment. It's sometimes things have to get worse to get better. That you have to bring in new players, stick with them, give them the chances, and then hope they come good, let's say this year or the year after. But you have to stick with them. We can't be chopping and changing just because every result that we have, today or tomorrow doesn't go away or goes away. We can't be that emotional with it. We have to be more long, look at it with a bit of longevity, you could say. And I expect them to win by 10 or more points. They won by 11. So let's move on. And it sets us up then for the game, as we mentioned earlier, the Waterford game. That's in Pearse Stadium. So that's a game of conditions. Tracking the weather as it's been up here in the West, it's always tricky. That'll be a tough game to manage. And I think, if I'm correct in saying, tell me this number, but if Galway beat Waterford or vice versa, they have them in the head-to-head.
Yeah, that'd be correct in saying,
So the fact that Galway, are drawing Waterford at this stage, right? And if they beat them, that's a huge one for them for survival hopes. Huge one. Because then obviously both teams would be on 4 points, but then Waterford would have to, get a game extra or get a point extra just to pass you out. So that's a huge one. So, I won't say pressure is on, but it is to a degree. It's not so much pressure. It's just you're feeling the heat a little bit now. You've lost your first 2 games, and we got some allowances with that because we blooded some new players, and we were going up against the All-Ireland finalists, both of them. But I think now it's even with the players, the age profile we have, the Galway public will be saying, right, we want you to beat Waterford. We need you to beat Waterford. So you have to win whatever you have to do to win that game. So it's a slight. I won't use the pressure. Just a bit of heat. Just a little bit of heat.
Yeah.
We're like, okay.
There's no harm.
Well, come here. As I said to you before, like it's a little bit of expectation might just warm the belly a little bit and get things moving. You know?
Yeah. But he can't be expecting to saunter into championship and kind of go, I will play all the league matches under a veil of no pressure whatsoever. The fucking, like some games you want team to go out and work and blah, blah, all this crack. But sometimes also it's useful to have a little bit of pressure on the shoulders and expectation that, lads, we need to win this match. Don't care how we do it, but winning this match, that's the important thing. And if you go and do that, you don't really overly care how you've done it because the objective was just to go and win it. So I think it's no harm.
But don't you learn as well, Murph? Like I would learn an awful lot about players if you because again, you'll have national media this week will be saying this is a do or die game for both teams. And if you have the younger players that I just touched upon, if they can feel that heat and then come through a battle, that does wonders for their development and for their confidence heading into the championship. Because I can tell you, you go down to Nolan Park, you're going to feel the heat from the second one. Second one, you're feeling heat because the guys in Black and Amber don't give a fuck about what age you are or how many matches you play for Galway. So to replicate that kind of scenario is important. You can't do it in training. I think you agree with me. It's very hard to replicate that pressure, that intensity in training. You try to get to the levels, but you just can't match it. Yeah. So if you have opposition in front of you and it's a do or die game, regardless of competition, that's where you learn about your players. That's where you really learn about who you have. And even that's where the young tag gets thrown away. If you have a guy who will survive and thrive in a game where there's pressure on, doesn't matter what age he is. Look at Bull O'Brien. Nobody knows Bull O'Brien's age. I don't. He's probably only 20 or 21. You know what I mean? That's all he is.
Yeah, that's all he is. Yeah.
But no one gives a fuck because he's producing week on week at a very high level. So as soon as you start producing, age is gone. It's just gone.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Will just text me here anyway. So obviously Will is listening somewhere in the ether. He's listening and he says that Gavin Lee has a suspected hamstring injury and he could miss the Waterford game. So I don't know how that affects your big plans for Pearse Stadium.
My motto, I always use it, Murph.
You can only play in front of you.
I have 4 words, Murph. I always use it. Get on with
hamstring.
Get on with it.
Yeah, well, look at here. At the end of the day, you can only play what's in front of you anyway. So it's good to have Will's little input to us here by WhatsApp. So, but look, the other game then as well, I suppose to look at then is Antrim 25 points. The other game in 1B, should I say? Antrim 25 points, Carlow 12 points. So a big victory for Antrim in Corrigan Park on Sunday. They gave Carlow a fair thumping, which gets them their first win of the season. And, we did think that this might be a close match. And I think Carlow as well, I suppose, have grounds to be disappointed in their performance. But really, look, to be honest, it's all about Antrim in this situation. Sean Elliott there with 8 points, 5 frees and 65. Colin Cunning with 6 points. Keelan Malloy with 3 points as well. So a lot of players standing up there. Down the other side, you had Marty Kavanagh with 5 points from 5 frees as well. 5 points from 5 frees. Kevin McDonald with 2 points then as well. And you had a spread of other scores then with 1 point. But I suppose the Dunline men, Elliott and Malloy, they both started off with 2 big scores for Antrim following the restart as they extended their lead to 3 points inside the opening 4 minutes of the second half. Elliott's third free of the half gave the hosts a 4-score lead, but it was instantly cut within 3 after 65 from Marty Kavanagh. Got the away side's first score of the second half. Rory Donnelly looked to have had the opening goal, but his strike just glanced the crossbar. Went over for a point for Antrim so they were closing in on their first victory at that stage. Keelan Malloy's monstrous point from inside his own 30-yard line gave the Corrigan Park another roar in relief, I suppose, as Antrim began to pull away from the opposition. The hosts went from strength to strength as scores from Conal Cunning and James McNaughton and Elliott ensured victory for the Saffrons. So David Fitzgerald's side earned their first victory of 1B campaign when Stephen Rooney and Morgan Nelson struck their first ever league points in the closing stages in Belfast. So that is keeping Antrim's hopes of avoiding relegation alive. And look, fair credit to Antrim. They've had a fairly bruising last couple of weeks, not to mind, I suppose, maybe last year not being happy with their performances as well. So that's definitely one that they can be happy with tonight, beating Carlow. Carlow, I suppose, will come back down the road and they won't be overly happy, I suppose, with their performance there. But again, all the spoils go to Antrim in Corrigan Park. And then just to cover the last few games. So in Division 2, London London were beaten by Westmeath. London 20 points, Westmeath 3-22. So an 11-point win there for Westmeath. And Meath 120, Derry 118. So 2-point win for Meath. And then basically the table. So Division 1A, Cork are still on top, having not played this weekend. Limerick are now up to, Cork are on 6 points. Limerick are up to second on 4 points, and they're joined there with Tipperary, Kilkenny and Waterford, who are all on 4 points. Galway have 2 points, and Offaly are holding up the bottom of the table with no points on the board yet. 1B then, we have Clare on top with 8 points. We have Wexford with 7 points, Dublin with 3, Kildare with 2, along with Antrim and Carlow, and then down again, propping up the bottom of the table there with no points on the board. And then with Division 2, we have Laois are on 6 points. They have Kerry then, who are on 5 points. Laois also on 6 points, having played 3 matches as well, which is obviously good going. Kerry on 5 points, played 4 matches. You have Westmeath then on 5. You have Meath on 4. You have Derry on 2, and you have London and Mayo both on 1 point. I suppose something as well, just to bring in and mention at the end, and was something that we were maybe eager to mention, was just the Camogie situation. We saw a few Wexford players obviously tweeting about this, and you can see, I suppose, more online that there was a change of venue for the was it Wexford and Clare over the weekend, and the change of venue was in Clare, and obviously the pitch conditions were absolutely shocking, to be honest. Now, look, I suppose we're speaking on Sunday evening. I haven't seen anything said in terms of why this was the situation. The pitch before throwing looked to be in a poor condition. That's no indictment of any club's fields at the moment, but at the same time, I suppose an inter-county camogie match, you wouldn't expect it to be played in those sort of conditions as well. I think the match was changed at 12 o'clock for a 2 o'clock throw-in. So I think all those things combined, look, I mean, we've very little power on the pod here, but I think to give it its own bit of light, that, you know, we'd expect the most for the fellas going out hurling matches over the weekend, and we expect the same for the girls as well. So yeah, look, I suppose from our side, we're just going to mention it as well there, and hopefully it's we won't see anything recreated like that. Go on.
I've seen the pictures online, and I don't have the full story. That's a picture from before, I presume, is it, or is it after?
I'm going to get it up there. From my understanding, it's before it.
Either case, it looked like there was, for all the farmers that listen to the podcast, you know, when you've got a water trough in a field, it's usually the most damaged place of the field. So that's what it looked like, to be fair.
Yeah.
It just looked, and I'd question why this repeatedly happens to the Camogie Association.
It does.
Why do we always have controversy around whether it be fixtures, clashing of fixtures, controversies around scores, something that you could say, you could avoid a controversy. It could be a simple fix. And I don't know exactly what the schedule was for facilities in Clare, but I do know I've been there. It's a fantastic facility. I believe it's Clare Castle. They have a full-size Astro where you can play.
Yeah.
Full-size Astro. And the question I was thinking when I saw the picture was, why couldn't they move to Clare Castle? Obviously there's no senior hurling game on there. There's no under 20s or minors I know of, you could say, in challenge games. Bring the ladies' game there, go on to the Astro, make it safe, and then everyone is delighted with the decision, move on. Yeah. Whereas now we have another, kind of issue, and just thankfully, nothing happened at Wexford or Clare player because of the conditions.
Yeah.
Footing is so bad. You make a wrong move there, Murph, your knee is gone. You make a wrong move, your elbow is gone. You're trying to hit the ground. It's not exactly the most, I would say, fruitful of conditions for a game. So I just think, people can do better. I'm not talking about the ladies now. I'm talking about the people, governance, they can do better.
Well, that's exactly it. Like, I mean, look, at the end of the day, I know some people may come out and maybe give some sort of an explanation. Like we said, we're recording this on Sunday evening. We haven't seen anything. We're working off, I see Dean Goodison here on Twitter. He just has pictures there of the goal mouth and a few different places, and it looks fairly cut up. I'm taking that's before the game. That's my understanding. It was posted yesterday at 20 past 2. So the match was on at 2 o'clock. So yeah, it had to be before the game. I see Laura Dempsey has it up then as well on Twitter. They're like, look, to put it into perspective, 4-hour journey to Clare, venue changed at 12 o'clock. Changed at 12 o'clock for a 2 o'clock game. There was no dressing rooms before the game or hot showers afterwards. So, and in fairness to Laura Dempsey, as she says, she's not usually one to give out about it, but at the same time, like, you have to highlight these things. So look, I think Skehill, I'd agree with you there. Like last year, the year before? I can't remember the scores. I think it was last year. We had scores. And again, look, I think from a lad's point of view, we do have a bit of a platform here to at least mention it. Like, and that's not something that you want for the ladies to be going out. Like they're training as much as lads, they're putting as much on the line. And then, you know, from what we can see there, obviously they're very upset about the situation. So look, that's all I suppose we have to say on it for the moment. We might have a little bit more during the week, but yeah, look, hopefully we just get a small bit better done by for the Camogies. But yeah, and maybe Will be back next week as well to back us up in this. He's been texting me for the whole time during this. So I'm looking at a document here online, which is his document. In fairness, he gave us something because we were up shit creek if we didn't have that document.
I have to give it to you, Murph. I have to give it to you. Right? I'm not belittling Will's job here.
No,
it's a bit of a natural.
I'm trying to harness my inner Will O'Callaghan, but then you realise that compared to Will, I'm solid useless compared to it. Like Will is so polished when he does this. Like Will doesn't miss a beat. He doesn't miss a beat. And then like every so often, I actually only get it from the other side. You know the way we often ask like ridiculous questions. Like we ask these questions that there's no way he can have the information to hand. And I was just thinking of he has that added pressure as well. So anyway, like we were saying, Will be back next week anyway. And obviously next week, we'll cover more in the members pod. Lord knows what we're going to talk about in the members pod because there's only the two of us, but we'll talk about something anyway. And obviously next week we have just the fixture. So Saturday in 1B, Carlow are playing Clare in Croke Park. That's at 6 o'clock. In Division 2, Derry are playing London in is it Celtic or Celtic Park? I always mix up that. In Derry at 1 o'clock. Mayo are playing Meath in Hastings Insurance McHale Park at 2 o'clock. On Sunday, we have in 1A, we have Galway versus Waterford in Pearse Stadium at 2 o'clock. It'll be raining sideways for that one as it usually probably is. We have Offaly in Limerick in Glennis O'Connor Park at 2 o'clock. Kilkenny are playing Cork in Nolan Park. UPMC Nolan Park, I might as well get all the sponsors in, 3:15 p.m. And in 1B, Down are playing Kildare and McKenna Park in Ballycran at 1 o'clock. Antrim are playing Dublin in Pearse Park at 2 o'clock. And in Division 2, then we have Westmeath and Laois in TEG Cusack Park at 2 o'clock. I'll do a Will O'Callaghan on it. James Skehill, thanks very much. All right, go on. We'll talk to you next week.
The Hurling Pod.
On Off the Ball.
With Applegreen. Making every journey better.